Hi there guys, welcome to this video. So we're going to start looking at the creation of this data model. Now I've made a decision to start the recording of this right from the very beginning. So we'll record all of the stuff that we have done over the previous session. There is a recording for that available through Microsoft Stream, but I made the decision it might make more kind of help for a number of you guys if you need to, for example, find stuff from those earlier videos in some of the stuff we're about to try. Now, it sometimes can be a little bit tricky to actually see some of this stuff that we're going to do. For example, up here in the formula bar, it can be sometimes not the easiest, especially if you're looking at a small screen. I will see if I can zoom in at various different points so that we can get a clearer picture with some of these formula that we're going to use. Now, I think something also to just bear in mind is that ultimately we are setting up a spreadsheet, a data model that is designed to give you guys the best opportunity to use the widest range of formula and functions. So I want just kind of you to be aware that ultimately within a real world spreadsheet, you may find yourself using a variety of different functions and formula. You may find yourself using the same formula on multiple occasions, but this particular set of data and this particular spreadsheet is designed so that we're going to use a range of different functions and formula, even if it does sometimes make it maybe a little more kind of convoluted than what you might have for a spreadsheet that you might make for the real world. I will try and split these up into more reasonable sizable chunks. But obviously one of the great advantages with recording this over doing it in the classroom is that I can just kind of record straight through, and you can pause and rewind, fast forward even, as and when you need to. So this is the set of data that I've distributed to you guys within the class last week, and pretty much everything we're going to do in this video is going to be stuff that we have done within that lesson. I'm going to add a couple more bits to it, actually. Particularly at the bottom, a couple more functions I want to add in there. So especially for those guys who have done the bulk of this stuff, there's still going to be a couple of bits within there for you to add, and maybe just double check that you have done everything that we need to do. So I will show you basically one sheet. We'll set up one sheet, and we'll add up a couple more sheets in there. So hopefully you can remember that we had a sheet where we contained all of the tables, sort of the lookups and the validation. We're going to create a front page for it and a macro. Now, I don't think that we're going to actually create the macros in this video, but it is certainly something that is on the agenda for, if not this video, then pretty likely the second one. So the first thing that we're going to start off by doing is using a straight up addition. Okay, so you need to kind of bear in mind that I've had a lot of students in the past who have been overly reliant on this button up here, the auto sum. And there's no doubt that auto sum is a useful tool, but there is an over reliance on it. So the auto sum basically means it will be a sum of whatever is within the brackets that it's going to give you. And while that is undoubtedly useful, you wouldn't do stuff like division, for example, or subtraction, or even a short addition. You would use the operators. So as students who in my class are level 3, I would expect you to have a working knowledge of operators. And by operators mean things like I'll type some in the formula bar. So addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, greater than, less than, that sort of thing. That's what we talk about when we talk about operators. If you've done any kind of programming, then you should be relatively familiar with those. And actually, we don't need to go through the whole equals sum palaver for some of this stuff. Okay, and one of the problems that we sometimes run into here is if you click on this auto sum up here, it will give you in this instance, horizontal all of the set of all of these numbers. Now, that's sometimes useful, but actually in this instance, it would be very easy to just hit return. And actually then the answer that you would get would be incorrect. Because if you look at all of these figures, so this is a grade and this is sales for, I know I haven't put the word sales in there, but sales for quarter 1, sales for quarter 2, sales for quarter 3, sales for quarter 4. And if what you're trying to work out is the total number of sales, like I said, the answer would be incorrect because this column here is not a column for sales. This is a column for grade, which we're going to link to price. And it's very, very easy to just hit return and then have a set of wrong answers here. But also, you need to have evidence of a range of different functions and formulas. So we're going to start off with a formula, and we're just going to start off with a straight up addition, which is going to be a total column. And every functional formula that we start off with starts with an equals. Okay. And we're just going to add these up. We're going to add up quarter 1 to quarter 4. And I'm just going to, you can type the cell reference in. So cell reference is D5, E5, F5, and G5. But I can just click in them and make my life a little easier. Okay, so D5 plus E5 plus F5 plus G5. So you need evidence of being able to use an addition. Okay, and one of the nice also things about Excel that we could do is that you don't have to go through each and every cell and write that in. Okay, you can just take this formula here. Okay, so you can see it's up in the formula bar. I have seen students in the past, and indeed members of staff and people who should know better, rather than letting Excel do all the hard work, they've whipped out their mobile phone, started adding it up on a calculator, or an actual physical calculator, or even worse, some of them have manually got a pad and paper and started adding up. And you're sitting there with your head in your hand, being like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. Let Excel do all the work for you. One of the things that we can do is drag this down. And what you'll find is that the formula in here will change with regard to the cell reference as it goes down. So we can see the top one here is the one we initially wrote in, and then the one below it, because Excel knows that you've drawn it down the line, is now D6, not D5, and so on all the way down. So we don't have to go in and type all of these formula in. We can drag it down and it will do a lot of the hard graph for us, which is nice. So we have a total column here. Now, what I'm going to add in here now, because I want to set up a subtraction, is I'm going to set up a cost column. Now, for you guys, actually, the cost, it doesn't really matter too much. I mean, guys, you could set up some very fancy things in terms of maybe a grade 1 game will cost a certain amount to buy in, or grade 2 game can cost a certain amount to buy in. I don't need to do that because I'm going to have a VLOOKUP elsewhere, and I don't need multiple different instances of a formula. I just need you to be able to show me that you can use various different formula throughout the spreadsheet. So this cost I'm just going to set as 3, and I'm going to drag it down. And this time, because Excel can work out that I haven't got a cell reference, it just stuck at 3 all the way down. If I put 3, 4, 5, and then dragged it down, then it would also know that it's part of a pattern, and it would then automatically increment all the way down, which is quite useful. Sometimes it can be a little bit fiddly, but most of the time you are absolutely fine. Now, what we're going to put in here is we're going to work out the price of the game. I'm going to put in here price sold. We're going to work out the price of the game based on what grade it is. So we're going to use that VLOOKUP that I mentioned for that. We're also then going to work out the profit per game. I'm going to try and make that a little bit smaller then. Hasn't really had a lot of impact, has it, to be honest with you, because profit per game is only one character out. But anyway, so we're going to put a multiplication in there. Okay. Sorry, profit per game, and then we want an overall profit per game. Oh, it's the same column, isn't it? I mean, guys, ultimately you can make these more kind of suitable names. So we've got profit per individual game, and then we've got overall kind of total profit per game. Total per game. How about that? And we're going to work out all of this stuff, and ultimately we have all of the items in the spreadsheet that we need in order to work this stuff out. And it's just a case of putting these formula in there. And once this is, I mean, obviously this is going to take a little bit of time to set up, not masses of time, but what I say is not masses and masses. I mean, ultimately I've done this type of worksheet quite a few times, so I kind of know where this is going. If you're setting this up for a first time, then obviously take you a bit longer than what it would do otherwise. But once this type of worksheet is set up, then you are good to go for a little while. So the price sold, okay, is going to be dependent on the grade. So we're going to do a VLOOKUP for this. So a VLOOKUP, technically, you can put anywhere. Sorry, I caught just a bit of a backfire and down the main road. A VLOOKUP you can technically put anywhere. You know, you can put your VLOOKUP here if you wanted to. In the same worksheet, I like to make mine a little bit neater. So I'm going to create a new worksheet by clicking that plus, and I'm going to make a new sheet. I'm going to call it extra. You guys don't have to call it extra. You know, you can call it something different if you want. I'm just going to call this extra information. And I'm going to create my first VLOOKUP table, which is going to be called game price. And by the way, guys, this header up here, you know, you can put it where you want. I mean, it's just something to make it look a bit nicer, really. Now, this game price, I have 4 grades here, so I'm going to have 4 different prices. So you can kind of maybe appreciate that in the quote-unquote real world, you might have a large range of different prices available, maybe a large range of different grades, and so on. But we're trying to keep it relatively straightforward for this example, because otherwise we're going to get a bit lost. And ultimately, what I'm looking for is evidence that you can use a VLOOKUP, and in fact, you're going to use 3 of them ultimately in the other 2 sheets as well as this one. And once we've done that, I think that will be sufficiently complex, and it always has been before. So we're going to create a table. We're going to have 4 different grades. We're going to create the VLOOKUP table in here is going to have 2 different columns. So we want the grades. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And what is going to happen is we're going to create a formula in this cell here that I've just highlighted, and it's going to look for whatever value is here. And you know what? You could perfectly reasonably put, or I could have put the column here if I wanted to. I haven't done that. It doesn't really matter too much, to be honest with you, where you put it, as long as your cell referencing is fine. So what it's going to do is that the price sold, it's going to say, okay, look in this cell here. Okay, this cell here, the C5, right? And find out what value is in that cell. Once you have found out what value is in that cell, then look in this table, okay, and find that value in the left-hand column and display whatever it equates to in the right-hand column. Now, this may sound like a very long-winded way of doing things. It's like, well, Mike, why don't you just write in here, I don't know, $14.99 or something? But what this kind of thing is useful for is once you've set up this VLOOKUP, you can imagine that in a real-world store, you don't have 28 items. You have hundreds and hundreds of items, and you might have hundreds of items which are grade 1. And if you want to change the price of grade 1, you'll have to go through each and every one of them, which of course is going to take you a vast amount of time and potentially has room for errors. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up, and I'm going to put in here $14.99. I think these are slightly different figures to what I actually used in class the other day. But to be brutally honest with you, the actual number itself isn't particularly important. What is important is that it works. So we have this table here. Now we're going to make our lives a lot easier by naming this table. Okay, so I'm going to highlight it, and then in the name box up here, which is literally above the A and the B, it currently displays A6. I can click on this and I can give this set of data a name. Now, this is really useful because then I can refer to it throughout the workbook and not have to use the actual cell range, which is frankly a lot more fiddly to write in and takes a bit of time. So I can put in here game price. And by the way, guys, you will obviously need to adapt this for the other two sheets. Okay, so you will need to make a music price table and a film price table. And I think it's worth obviously noting that obviously games are probably the most expensive item here. So you would expect different ranges is the point I'm making here. So therefore you will need to adapt and put your own figures in there. And there are going to be guys that get this very quickly, and there are going to be guys that struggle with it. Now, once you've written in the game price, you have to hit return. If you do not hit return, it will not save it. Okay, so if I just kind of go off it, if I click somewhere elsewhere, okay, then that name won't have been stored. Okay, you need to hit return. So game price return. And I know if it's worked, okay, if I click off it, and then if I highlight it again, you can see that the name appears. That's how you know that the table naming has worked. Now, what I'm going to do now is go back into my game sheet, and I'm going to write out this VLOOKUP. I'm going to click on the function icon up here. I mean, this is actually quite an advanced function to be using relatively short term in the creation of spreadsheet. However, a lot of the other areas of the spreadsheet are reliant on us having these prices, so we'll do it relatively early on. So we can either write it out, if you can remember it all from scratch. However, I'm a bit lazy as an IT guy. We want to be able to do things as quickly as possible. So I can click FX, and I'm going to look for VLOOKUP on my screen. Now, because VLOOKUP is one of the more frequently used functions for me, it appears relatively high. Now, if your VLOOKUP doesn't appear on here, and it's semi-likely that it may not, then you can go to all, or you can go to lookup and reference. Lookup and reference probably the easier one because there's less items in it, and you can just scroll down to where it says VLOOKUP. Okay, and you can do it either way. But if you go to all, you can see that the scroll bar is much larger. It takes that nanosecond more to scroll. It's quite useful because not many things called V in here, so you can generally find it quite quickly. And one of the things of using this type of, it's almost a bit like a wizard, I guess, is that it will give you this type of pop-up box, okay, and it will say lookup value. So lookup value is the cell or range that you are looking up from. Oops, and I slightly didn't mean to actually click outside of that just then. So for us, the lookup value is the grade. Okay, the lookup value is C5. All right. Again, you may find that you may have named your cell, in which case you could put the name in there if you so wish. But for us, we're just putting in. We could just live with the actual cell reference because there's only one cell. So C5 should be fine. And again, you can see if it immediately works because you have the right number appear over here. Table array. So this is where we put in the name of the table that we've just named. This is really useful, like I said, because otherwise you have to put the actual cell references in there, and it can become quite fiddly. So I called mine game price, and you will know if it works because all of these figures now appear on the right hand side. I nearly lost my train of thought then. And the last thing, it says column index number. So this is referring to the table that we've just called, okay, and it's saying, all right, so we're looking in your table and it's found number 1. What column do you want to display? So in theory, you could have more than one column here. Now we've only got 2 columns, and this number here, okay, the C5 equals 1, will be in the first column, and everything else is in the second column. So what we want to include here is column index number 2. And again, you'll know if it's right because you can actually see you have a result down here, which in my case is $14.99. Now, if you use different price values, then you're going to have different prices. And to be honest with you, I'm not particularly fussed how you price them. As long as it's within reasonable bounds, then you're probably going to be okay. It's not really something that I'm massively fussed about. I'm going to click OK, and there we can see price in there. And like the other ones, I can drag this all the way down. Now, remember when I said that one of the big advantages of this is I have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 grade 1 games, all priced at $14.99. I can go into extra and I can change this to $16.99. Okay, so I've changed 1 character. Okay, and when I go back in here, it has changed it for every single grade 1 game. So imagine if you have 100 of these grade 1s, how much time you are saving, from having to go in and manually do this 100 times. Okay, it is much more beneficial for you to do it this way. But of course, setting it up is that bit more complex. But if you are an IT guy, or lady, or whoever, or bod, maybe is that the right phrase? Then you are expected to be able to use a spreadsheet. It is one of those pieces of software that is pretty expected that we're able to use, and with good reason. Spreadsheets are extremely useful. So profit per game. This is going to be a subtraction. It should be pretty obvious what the subtraction is. So we're going to take the price the game is sold at, and then take away the cost that we have spent buying in the game. So a straight up subtraction. So we're going to click equals again, and then we're going to go into price sold minus a dash, and then again hit the other cell, hit return, and you will get a total profit. And again, I can drag this all the way down. So now, without doing too much, we have an addition, we have a subtraction, we have a VLOOKUP. Okay, so there's 3, two formula and 1 function in here already. And actually, one of the functions is, a VLOOKUP is a reasonably advanced function. VLOOKUP is more advanced than an if statement. So total per game. Again, this is a multiplication. Basically, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this profit per game and times it by the total number of units that have been sold. Okay, and I appreciate that this is a very kind of basic shop example. I mean, in the real world, you would have a lot more different variables in here. So, but like I said, the idea here is that we are going for a range of different things for which you can use a range of different formula for. So, profit per game times the total. Now, unlike the subtraction, remember the subtraction has to be done in a certain order. So I realised that I didn't mention this obviously when I put in the subtraction, but I'm making a wild assumption that you've used subtraction a few times in your life. You should know that the subtraction has to be done in a certain order. The multiplication does not have to be done in a certain order. You can click those cells either way round. Click return, and then drag it down. If you get that, I've had to make it really small to get mine. If you get that, okay, which is where the cells are in hashtags, that means that your column is not wide enough. I've had students in the past who've got themselves into a right tizzy because they think that something is wrong with their spreadsheets because they get the hashtags appearing. And like I said, the only issue is that the column is not wide enough, and you just need to make it a bit bigger than it should appear. Okay, total per game. What I also want to work out is the tax. Now, I did not do this in class. I must admit it slipped my mind at the time, but we can also do the tax. So tax. So this one times times 0.2, and then you get a tax figure, and you can do another subtraction based on this. So you can see that we're kind of padding this out with a few different ranges of a few different examples of formula here. So again, we can do another subtraction here. So total per game minus tax. Okay. Actually, I've just had a thought about how we could potentially do this another way. Bear with me a minute. Let's have a little bit of a. So basically, I'm thinking that I might want to use a percentage in here. What about right? What about equals L5 times that? Will that work? Yes. Okay, there we are. I'd actually prefer because right. So now you'll notice that I've made a bodge up. So remember that I said to you that every time we move down one, the cell reference is going to change by 1. So what we now need to include in here is, because I put this 20% right at the top, and again, this is just the thing that I've done off the cuff here, actually. So what we now can do is include something called an absolute cell reference. So basically, I want it to point to this M4 no matter what. Okay, so I don't want it to move from either row M, not that it would because you're going down anyway, but we certainly don't want it to move from row 4. So we're going to put in here an absolute cell reference, and to do that I'm going to put dollar signs. I'm going to put the dollar signs in front of the M and the 4. I don't need it in front of the M, to be honest with you, because I'm not moving it off the M. However, off column M. However, I am going to put it in here just kind of to show you this is what a full absolute reference would look like. So I'm going to click on return, and then when I drag it down, I clicked my mouse too early. There we go. Okay, so now we can see as we go down, see this M4 up here has not changed at any point. And we have all of these different figures up here now. You'll notice, by the way, at this point, I haven't really done any formatting as yet. I mean, I formatted this percentage because actually I wanted to use the percentage. But I haven't done any formatting as yet. We'll do that next video because I'm already up to half an hour for this one. As a matter of fact, I will stop this video now, as I don't really want the chunks to be too big. So I'll see you guys in the next video.